It's a pleasure, a privilege to be here in Brisbane. I don't really have a formal speech to make. I have 20 minutes. I have some notes scribbled from while I was traveling from Delhi to Canberra, and haven't had time to review it for today. Having reviewed the theme of this conference, I thought that it would be quite probably of interest to you, fitting, to share with you my experience of the last 3 years working with the United Nations after I left the office. But before that, probably you understood from the introduction that I have had 40 years or more of association with the United Nations. First, as a representative of a forgotten people, forgotten national liberation movement, arriving in New York in the winter of December 75, having never been to New York and never really read much about the UN itself. So my association began as a representative of a forgotten people with very, very little influence, power behind us, behind me. And this went on for 24 years. Then became foreign minister. So from a freedom fighter, as we are described, in a more positive manner, because in the past, some of us would be described in not very kind ways by some of the Western media or Western academia, or particularly by confidential reports compiled by the State Department or the Department of Foreign Affairs, etc., in Canberra. You know, I was always sometimes practicing, sometimes non-practicing Catholic. And yet I was described as a hardline Marxist. My colleagues in Timor-Leste would laugh when they heard I was described as a Marxist. Really, he is a Marxist? Since when? And then became foreign minister, and before that, obviously, the Nobel Peace Prize. And then we had a crisis in 2006. I was asked to step in, first as defense minister. I declined, and I thought of some friends of mine, particularly former president of Costa Rica, Oscar Arias, good friend of mine, who always told me that Timor-Leste should not have an army after independence. And can you imagine Oscar Arias hearing that not only we have an army, but I became defense minister. So I thought, but our defense people insisted that they trust me, I should be defense minister. So I became defense minister, and soon after, prime minister as well, as foreign minister, as president. When I finished my term in 2012, the Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, very kindly asked me whether I would accept to be his special representative in South in West Africa, which I did for a year and a half, to help the people there get rid of a coup, the military who staged a coup, won many, many times they did over 40 years, to restore constitutional order. Sounds simple, but it's not that ever so simple. You have many vested interests there, rivalries of the countries of the region and beyond the region, as it happened elsewhere on the African continent, in Asia, and even in Latin America in the worst years of the violence, particularly in Central America. And if you look at the conflict in Congo, It's not only the problems of the Congolese, it's not only the failure of the UN. Some countries are fortunate to have great neighbors who help you resolve your others. They strive in the tensions, the conflicts in your country. South Sudan is the same. Guinea-Bissau never was as bad as South Sudan, far from it, but it was extraordinarily complex with different conflicting interests, countries in the region and beyond. Apparently, I did a decent mission, and I ended, and then Secretary General asked me to serve as chair of what is called high-level independent panel on UN peace operations. And that is to review all the UN peace operations around the world and make recommendations to him, to the Security Council, General Assembly, on how to improve. So that's what I think would be fitting to talk to you today about it. A new Secretary General has just been elected, unanimously, enthusiastic endorsement by the Security Council, and acclamation by the General Assembly. And he is Antonio Guterres, formerly High Commissioner for Human Rights. He did an outstanding job as High Commissioner for Human Rights. When he was running for the job of High Commissioner for Human Rights, I was asked to help influencing the decision in New York. And I sent a note to whoever were to make the decision among 6 or 7 candidates for High Commissioner for Human Rights. And I told whoever the power that be in New York that would make the decision, do not look only at academic and professional background, because usually people who apply for this kind of jobs, whether it's for Secretary of the UN or for High Commissioner for Refugees, are people with outstanding academic and professional profile. Some even have 30 years of bureaucratic life. If you grew up in the United Nations system, from when you leave, you get your first bachelor's degree, and you end up being Under Secretary General, well, you are an accomplished UN bureaucrat, but you might not have had much exposure and experience in dealing with daily life, real challenges in a country, in building a nation, in managing expectations, and resolving conflicts in multi-ethnic, multicultural, divided societies. So I told whoever was to make the decision, please look also at the heart of the person, because for the High Commissioner of Refugees, you need a person with compassion, with a heart. And the choice fell on Antonio Guterres for High Commissioner for Refugees. If any of you had read 2 articles I wrote recently, if you haven't, you should. You click in Huffington Post, my name, / Antonio Guterres, a few weeks before the decision of Security Council, and then a week before, I did another one. I had to do another one before the final decision, because while there seemed to be universal consensus that Antonio Guterres was the best qualified among those who had signed up, offered themselves to be Secretary General, suddenly, out of the blue, Angela Merkel, Germany, President Juncker of the European Commission, and the Bulgarian government decide to pull out of the hat